to the latest episode of Mystery Unsolved. That's right, I'm back for another season and installment of the unknown, the unpredictable, and most likely the unsolved. To kick off this season, I am going to be looking into the mysterious assassination of Huey Long. For those who don't know who Huey Long was, he was a senator who was going to make a bid for the presidency. Unfortunately, he never got to do so because he was killed. Now, this episode could be a bit dull, dragging, maybe even a little bit boring for some. But fear not. For all those people who think it might be boring, I've decided to spice it up because I will be reading it in and out at times in the voice of Robert Stack from Unsolved Mysteries. Spice things up. Also because I actually have an article here that is actually a Wikipedia, not Wikipedia, but a wiki page for Unsolved Mysteries for the actual episode that featured Huey Long. So without further ado, let us look into Mystery Unsolved, the mysterious assassination of Huey Long. Huey Long was born August 30th, 1893. He died September 10th, 1935. I will save you the political nonsense, I suppose is what we could call it. Let's get right down to the goods, shall we? Because that's why we're here. Alright. Should have had this already fired up and ready to go. But of course, I do not. Alright. On September 8, 1935, Long traveled to the state capitol to pass a bill that would gerrymander the district of an opponent, Judge Benjamin Pavey, who had held his position for 28 years. At 9:20 p.m., just after passage of the bill effectively removing Pavey, Pavey's son-in-law, Carl Weiss, approached Long, and according to the generally accepted version of events, fired a single shot with a handgun from 4 feet away, striking Long in the torso. Long's bodyguards, nicknamed the Cossacks or Skull Crushers, then fired at Weiss with their pistols, killing him. An autopsy found Weiss had been shot at least 60 times. Dear God! Can you say overkill? Wow. Long ran down a flight of stairs and across the Capitol grounds, hailing a car to take him to Our Lady of the Lake Hospital. He was rushed to an operating room where surgery closed performance. He was rushed to the operating room where surgery closed perforations in his intestines but failed to stop internal bleeding. Long died at 4:10 a.m. on September 10th, 31 hours after being shot. According to different sources, his last words were either, "I wonder what will happen to my poor university boys," or, "God, don't let me die, I have so much to do." I've actually heard the second one referenced more than the first. I've never heard the first thing, supposedly. Over 200,000 people traveled to Baton Rouge to attend Long's September 12th funeral. His remains were buried on the grounds of the Capitol. A statue depicting Long was constructed on his grave. Although Long's allies alleged he was assassinated by political opponents, a federal probe found no evidence of conspiracy. Long's death brought relief to... Okay, so it gets off into a bunch of, political stuff that we don't need to hear. So why are we here, Justin? Well, he was shot. It should be an open and closed case, right? Not exactly. Some people suggest that Carl Weiss didn't actually kill him at all, which we're about to find out in the second article. This one is the Unsolved Mysteries article, so, All right, again, getting to the good stuff. All right. So again, you're probably going to hear me repeat some stuff that I had just read in the first article. It'll be worded differently, but at least it'll be worded differently. So I'm not actually technically repeating myself, because I don't like to do that. I like how you can't even see the top of my head. That's because I'm sitting weird, but I'm gonna get comfortable. All right. Judge Henry Pavey was one of the many elected officials that Huey targeted for political destruction. Pavey's 29-year-old son-in-law, Dr. Carl Austin Weiss. See, the first article just said it was the guy's son-in-law, but this one says his age, the fact that he's a doctor, and gives his middle name. So look at that. On September 4th, 1935, Huey returned to Louisiana from Washington, D.C. 4 days later, he was shot, allegedly by Carl Weiss. Weiss was immediately killed by his bodyguard. Huey died from his wounds a few hours later. The inquest determined that Weiss had probably shot Huey to prevent him from destroying his father-in-law's political career. Although the case seemed open and shut, some believe that Weiss was innocent and that Huey was killed accidentally. So that's why we're here. So in the first article, it says Weiss killed him. Bodyguard shot and killed Weiss by shooting him 60 times. But see, that's not what really happened. At least that's not what I think happened. On the day of the shooting, the Weiss family gathered together for dinner at Weiss's father's home. According to those present, his father was the one angry about Huey's gerrymandering tactics. Weiss himself actually calmed his father down, minimizing Huey's actions. After dinner, Weiss went to visit a patient's home. He made a call from the patient's home and then left. Instead of going home, he went to the state capitol. House Bill Number 1 would determine the fate of Judge Pavey's career. Huey was determined to have the bill passed. At 9 p.m., Huey walked to the Capitol, taking various individuals. Switching up the voices. Some believe that Weiss went down there to plead with his father-in-law's case. On 3 separate occasions, Weiss would attempt to approach Huey, but he would be brushed off each time. At 9:20 p.m., Weiss approached Huey for the third and final time. Some people believe that during this encounter, Huey made an angry remark towards Weiss. They believe that Weiss punched him in the face. After that, they believe that Huey's bodyguard shot Weiss and accidentally shot Huey. After the shooting, Huey, despite being seriously wounded, continued to order people around. Again, like the first article, except this time you can actually sort of picture him like bossing people around, like, God damn it, I've been shot, help me. The surgeons overlooked a serious wound to his kidney. A day and a half later, he died from his wound. So in the beginning of the first article, it said he died a couple hours. I don't know, a day and a half later and a couple of hours are two completely different things. So is it a couple hours or is it a day and a half? The discrepancy is ridiculous. At the official inquest, Weiss was named the assassin, but many remained unconvinced. There appeared to be no evidence that he planned on shooting Huey. It is known that Weiss owned a .32 caliber pistol, which he kept in the glove compartment of his car. However, Arthur Reed believes that he has uncovered evidence that Huey was not shot with this gun. The official version of the shooting claims that no bullets were retrieved from Huey's body. However, a relative of one of the surgeons present claims that a .38 caliber bullet was pulled from the body. This bullet could not have come from Weiss's gun. Back to Maine. A second bullet was also allegedly found while the body was being prepared for autopsy. A doctor and close friend of Huey's allegedly approached the mortician and asked him to step away from the body. Shady stuff going on now. The friend pulled another bullet out of the body that would have been a .45 caliber bullet. This also would not have come from Weiss's gun. Reed also believes that Weiss would not have been able to enter the Capitol with a gun. No shit. On the night of the shooting, Weiss's brother and cousin came to the building and found his car in the parking lot. Realizing that it was locked, they went back to get the keys. When they returned, they found it had been moved to another spot. When they opened the car, the gun was missing, and his bag was apparently rifled through, or rifled through. A security guard at the Capitol claimed that night someone, not Weiss, moved his car that night. One of Huey's guards claimed that he believed Weiss's gun was planted with his body. Reed believes that due to the guard's lack of training. Whoops, I lost the article. Look at that. Hold on, I apologize. That was. Reed believes that due to the guard's lack of training, they mistakenly believed Weiss had a gun and shot him. Oh yeah, the old "we're not trained properly." He thought he had a gun. How many times has that happened? When they realized their mistake, they went out to his car, took his gun, and planted it on him. Yeah, because that's totally the appropriate thing to do. Reed learned that Huey apparently had a busted lip when he entered the surgeon's room. When asked about it, he claimed that's where he hit me. One witness claimed that he meant that Weiss hit him in the face with his fist. Again, yeah, he got punched in the face at first. So to me, before I go any further, it sounds like Weiss was pissed off, wanted to cause a scene because, he got brushed off 3 times by Huey Long. So when they finally, when he finally encountered him, socked him right in the face, that's why he got the busted lip. For years, it was difficult for anyone to investigate the case. Several investigative files, along with Weiss's gun, were lost or misplaced. Again, how convenient. In 1987, forensic expert James Starrs began to investigate the case, hoping to find the lost evidence. He looked into police investigators from 1935, focusing on then Chief of Police, Louis F. Gear. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. One of Starr's investigators found Gear's will. In the will, there was a list that mentioned miscellaneous police files. More importantly, another list in the will mentioned Carl Weiss's gun. It was traced to a safety deposit box in New Orleans, where it was in the possession of Gear's daughter. Along with the gun, there were several unused .32 caliber bullets and a spent .32 slug. At first, it was assumed that the slug was from the bullet that killed Huey. However, ballistic tests conducted by the police determined that the slug had not come from Weiss's gun. However, the Louisiana State Police still holds the position that Dr. Carl Weiss was the assassin. The Weiss family, on the other hand, wants Carl's name cleared, certain that Huey was shot by his own bodyguard. Update. After the broadcast, a former superintendent of Louisiana State Police, Francis Revenberg, these names, I swear, came forward, claiming that Huey was indeed killed by his bodyguards. Revenberg claimed that he was told by 2 eyewitness state troopers that Dr. Weiss was unarmed when Huey was shot. So there's Huey Long, there's his bodyguards around him. So I think that's a legit claim because why if you're gonna approach a guy and there's other guys around him, there's a crowd of people, why would you try to go there with a gun? Because you know that they're probably carrying it too. So there's a good chance he didn't have that gun that they also claim that he did. The trooper claimed that the bodyguards did accidentally shoot Huey and plant a gun with Weiss. Gravenberg claimed that he did not come forward until 40 years later because the Louisiana state legislature was filled with prolonged politicians who would not believe the story or support an inquiry. In research unavailable to the public, it has been revealed that Senator Long had a life insurance policy of $10,000. Here's the kicker. The policy would double if he died by accident. So, if anybody had this information, They could just have said, like, hey, yeah, his bodyguards accidentally killed him. Here's $20,000 for his family. But that's not the case here. They always remained adamant for 40 years that Dr. Carl Weiss killed him. After Long died, the insurance company hired a private investigator to look into the matter. Oh, excuse me, I skipped the part. The Long family was awarded $20,000. So the family ended up getting the double anyway. Didn't they wonder why? Because if they said, like, oh, well, he didn't die on accident, technically, he didn't die on accident. Here's your $20,000. After Long died, the insurance company hired a private investigator to look at the matter. In 1936, the investigator concluded that Senator Huey Long was fatally shot accidentally by his own bodyguard. However, the debate still remains as to what really happened to Huey Long on the night he was shot. So, as you can see, you can kind of understand why I wanted to do an episode on this, because it's not as open and shut as you think it is. Like, did he or didn't he? Did Carl Weiss have a gun? I don't think so. Did Carl Weiss shoot Huey Long? No, because I don't think he had a gun. I think that Weiss punched him in the face. This caught the guards off, clearly. And maybe, because this isn't mentioned in either article, maybe Weiss kind of looked like maybe he was reaching into his pocket for something, and maybe the bodyguards mistook that for, oh, he's reaching for a gun, pulled out their own guns, because that always happens in, like, every single movie you've ever seen. And they just, went nuts on him, 60 times. So yeah, I think that's probably what happened. And again, they even said it's unresolved. So technically it's solved, but technically it's not, which makes it really fascinating. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I would love to hear conclusions as to what you think happened. For those who watch this on the playback, I'm still wondering if that one person is actually a person watching this, or it's just me, or it's just Restream saying, hey, we'll throw you one person. I don't know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and hope you enjoyed my little Robert Stack impersonation. Again, just trying to spice things up. Stay tuned for next week's episode, because I don't know what it is offhand. I should probably have that information ready to go, but I do not. But again, this has been Mystery Unsolved, the mysterious assassination of Senator Huey Long, unresolved, unsolved, and definitely, indeed, a mystery. So until next week,